Okay, I'm going to try to show you today how to mix your complementary colors. They're across from each other on the color wheel. They're opposites. And today we're using orange and blue for this orange study that we're doing. And we just have white. There is no black to darken, so we're going to use the complements to darken each other. We have two brushes. You have a bigger one and a smaller for details. The first thing I'm going to do is just kind of start into my table. With this tempera, we don't want to add a lot of water, so I have paper towels for you to blot your brush, but I'm going to grab my blue and get started on my table. I'm moving quickly so that you'll have time to paint. You are going to want to take your time. I might want to put a little white on this side with my blue to lighten it. This is the lighter side of the table because the light bulb's shining down. Make sure you're using brush strokes, not scrubbing with your brush. And you can mix it right in, right on the paper. I also do have little plates for you so that you can do some mixing as needed, because you're going to need to do that to darken and to lighten. So I might put this lighter side on this side, a little darker on the other side. And you can't see all of that, so I'm going to keep moving on. So you can imagine you're going to be painting the whole table. We're going to make that blue for the blue surface of the table. I'm going to go ahead and jump into my orange. I might go ahead and use the orange to go around my rind that was on the sliced fruit. It's pretty dark, so I'm going to add some white and blend it right in there. You can mix on your palette. You'll have extra dishes so you can do some mixing and make some tints of orange, which is white. It is a little bit of orange with a little bit more of the white. Okay, so I might have something like that. The interior of this fruit is going to be fairly light. And that's why we wanted to really keep our pencil lines really light on your sketch, because I don't want to see them at the end. And put some little dashes of light white in there. I like to paint in some areas and come back, let it dry just a little bit before I get in between, or else that all just starts mixing. I put some more little highlights up on this side of the fruit because the light bulb, again, this is my lightest area of value. Okay, I'm going to start working on this. This is where yesterday we had the pencil where it was very light. Then we pressed a little harder, and we got really pressing a lot harder at the very bottom where the shadow is. So in this case, because it's orange, this has to be my lightest value of orange, mostly white with only a little orange, mixing a little darker, and down here is where I'm going to have to start to mix that shadow. So I might put some of the orange right in the middle. That's my middle value. At the top, it's mostly white. Use the smaller brush to make clear, defined brush strokes, trying to do your neatest work. Okay. Down below, I need my darker value, so I will wash out this brush a little, blot out the water. You can even kind of squeeze the water out of your brush onto your napkin or just blot it. And you're going to notice I'm going to take a little bit of blue, a little bit of orange here, and when I start to mix, I get a darker value. It does not take much blue at all. You can see how quickly that changes. I probably need a little more orange, but it does start to darken. So just do tiny amounts. It's a brush tip is all you need. And this is my darker orange. It's the shadow orange. My darkest, very darkest value will be in that cast shadow, even still with this example. You can blend that a little bit into your last one, last value painting. I'm going to grab a little bit of orange in the middle again just to blend those two together. So they sort of have light going to middle, going to darkest. for the back one. I'm going to jump into my cast shadow because I'm speeding along. You're going to take your time here. I need that darkest blue. Just straight blue is not dark enough, so I am going to actually add a little bit more blue to this that I already mixed. And I will start to get a darker, deeper shade. We have our tints and shades, and that is my cast shadow. I still want to stay true to that little shape I made. It is a curve or an ellipse. If you can see here, I've got to finish painting that table, but I jumped ahead. Make sure this is really dark. If you're thinning this out with water, I shouldn't see through this paint. This is tempera and it should be opaque. So it might mean you need to use less water or and then maybe even put on a second coat. I'm going to kind of define this a little bit right here. Make sure you're being a good neighbor and mix on your own plate or your own area. I'm using this so you can see, but you'll have a plate that you can do some mixing on. Okay, I will be going back into that orange because it's probably a little bit drier now, and I can kind of put another tone. I want something different than my inside segments, so I'm going to mix something kind of a little bit, maybe a little darker, and I'll try and see what I get here. I still want to see those segments, so try not to lose those totally. I can always go back in once I have some areas painted. I might want to go in with a really pointy white brush tip, and I could kind of start to define those shapes again. Because we'll want to definitely have a lot of detail in that sliced, whatever your sliced fruit ends up being for your final project, we'll want to see that. Okay, so I want you to get started. You can see though that we have the different values, definitely shadow, highlights, middle tones, and shadows. And that's all happening from just a little bit of mixing. You can see how really little bit of paint that I've used, so that's plenty for your whole table. You never want to, when you're painting, you're just doing the brush tip. You're not loading it up where you're getting it all over the metal. That's called the ferrule. Do make sure that you're holding your brush closely to that ferrule. That gives you the control. I still see some people trying to hold their brush way back here, and you cannot control it. You've got to get close, just like you would a pencil, so that you can guide the brush and make very defined brush strokes. There is a little bit larger brush. This is good for the table and those bigger areas, but you'll probably do a lot with this smaller brush. Okay, we'll see if this works.